Stress like that. So it was. Oh, the other person that's. Remember the resolution that came up? First of all, she went over to the sign and she put her name. She did her usual.
All righty. Who are we missing? Ford. Okay, let's go ahead and start. The sooner we start, the sooner we get out of here.
Amen.
How are you doing, Linda? And Valerie, you're here. And Muriel, you're here. Everybody else, we said good morning. We'll say good afternoon now. Well, if the odds are pretty good, I'd be right this summer, or a humid day, or just plain crummy day. You know, this is a nice one out there today. So we got two bills. 625, relative to the calculation of average daily membership and attendance and average daily membership and residence for school districts. And the other one, relative to local education improvement plans and disparities in education. So let's just go in sequential order here, 625. So let's look at 625. Does everybody recall what this one is about? It's, you know, overall, it's about the 0.15 FTE that the school district will get if a kid comes into a high school class and for reimbursement from the state in terms of adequacy. The bill is proposing that this be relative to school academic courses in grades 1 through 12. So, but there, we're open for discussion. One of the prime shakers and bakers of this thing is Representative Cordelli. He's here. And
One of the things I think we talked about in the hearing was how do you define
the mic, yeah, the red.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about in the hearing was how do you define the 0.15, et cetera. I had that in my notes anyway.
And that was a question which we had. You have in the high school, of course, defined courses.
Yeah.
In middle school, you have a lot of that same type of block scheduling or scheduling occurring. In the high school, dealing with courses. Very few of the junior high schools, middle schools now are basically taking the elementary model. And in the elementary model, wherever your middle school starts or the elementary ends is a totally different ballgame. You know, so Representative Uno.
Thank you very much, Rick. So I'm just looking at my notes, and we had the hearing on January 27th. We exected on March 7th, 20-0 to retain it. I'm not showing much on my hearing notes other than it being introduced, but I could be wrong on that. And was wondering because, and maybe Glenn can help clear this up too, because a lot of the language here seems very, very much, you know, sort of minutia detailed, technical language. I was wondering, did it come from the department? Is this something that they're trying to clean up?
I don't recall actually, because there was another one that I submitted based on a constituent request, and I think it might have been this one.
Okay.
But I believe I recall from testimony from Ms. Davis that they did have a national publication that helped them separate out class time at the elementary school level. I thought that maybe someone from the department would be here today, but
So what is the problem that this is trying to solve? I guess I'm trying to.
believe there was interest in participating in extracurricular activities from homeschoolers and others at additional grade levels other than high school, if I'm thinking of the same bill.
So it gets rid,
Yeah.
gets rid of high from schools, so public schools.
Right now, it's my understanding when you talk about extracurricular or co-curricular, as it still says co-curricular, that a person that's a resident of that district, but maybe being a homeschooled kid, may participate in co-curricular. That's my understanding, even at the elementary level. I see that happening up in my neck of the woods. So the original bill spoke to academic courses in grades 1 through, not your bill, but the original law spoke solely to academic courses, academic course in the high school for reimbursement.
Right. I had thought that it didn't extend down beyond even the high school level, but my memory might be faulty in that
The
regard.
program we have here in law only speaks to high school.
Yeah, right, yeah.
0.15 reimbursement.
Right.
But with in NHIAA, if you are successful in your homeschooling program or in completing the eligibility requirements of the high school and a resident of the district, you have to be at the resident of the district. You can't be, in another district and wanting to come in and play hockey in that one, and, that's going to be a form of recruiting. But that was permissible. I just, I guess Glenn, am also asking, how do we do this in the elementary school? In the middle school, I can see it. I can see this happening. But in
Maybe what I can do is I'll text Ms. Davis and see if she has further information on that publication that she had referred to at one point that would allow some delineation at the elementary school level.
okay, yes, Representative Dry.
Thank you. I wonder, Glenn, you don't go too far away, please.
He has work to do.
Sorry. I hear you. So technically, if you take an EFA, you are not a home educated student anymore, but you are still educating at home and therefore eligible to take part in some of the public schools offerings. So this would take out, right, this would
Pay for it. You would have to pay for that if you were taking receiving EFA.
Yes, okay.
Homeschooling, you don't get any reimbursement. You can go into that athletic program, no problem. If you have the eligibility, academic and attendance stuff under control.
Yeah, counts, yes, but do they count in the ADMA regardless of whether they're paid from the EFA or not? I mean, so is an EFA student who's educated at home part of this ADMA count?
I do not believe so.
Why not? Because they can still take part.
Right, but they are not actually in attendance full-time at that facility.
Well, none of the homeschoolers would be.
Right, so they're not included in the ADM A or R.
I guess I'm asking if you're taking out home educated students, but are you keeping the home educated students who are in EFAs who are no longer considered home educated?
You can't be both,
Right.
home educated and EFA. It's
I
one
get
or
that.
the other.
Right.
If you're a homeschooler, you can participate
Right.
because you're not getting any financial support through the state for your homeschooling.
Correct.
If you're an EFA student, you are getting that $4,100 or the additional amount of money for the differentiated aid component. You would have to then pay to participate in the activities at school.
Right. And are therefore not in the ADMA. Okay, because you would have to pay for doing that. So who does this apply to that wouldn't already be enrolled in the in the school, in the public school? If you've taken out home educators and the EFAs don't apply.
That the bill was written, I think, Margaret, for, it applies, the reimbursement to the high school is already in law. You get 0.15 of that $4,100, whatever it might be, right?
Mhm.
If you're going to go to the middle school and this is happening and taking maybe their US history course, the middle school cannot get reimbursement for that time the student's in there if they're a homeschooler even. They will if they are in the high school, but we have written this law so it's only applicable right now to high school.
Mhm.
I think the intent of this, and I wasn't part of it, was to allow this to occur in other grade levels besides 9 through 12.
Correct.
Okay.
Um,
I'm
I was
still
going to make a
thinking-
point, but now I lost it.
I'm still thinking that you have just cut out the categories, all right, of people that are eligible to do that. Do you see what I'm saying? Home educated is crossed out, and EFAs don't apply. So who are we aiming this at?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
but if I could, maybe, Mr. Chairman, am I correct? And I think that we had corrected the situation, maybe last year, that the 0.15 was only reimbursed to the district if there were funds available. I think we made a statutory change that it would always be paid to the district.
I believe that's the case. Yeah. The best of my knowledge, I remember doing that. I remember fiscal talking about it and finance approving it.
Rick?
Yes.
So how would this work? Let's say a student who's is eligible to have access to curricular courses per 193(1)(c). I suppose I need to look at that. And who is enrolled in a school board approved public school shall count as an additional 0.15 pupil for each such academic course taken in a public school. How would that apply to a student who may be attending a public school out of their, a school board approved public school outside of their district and is paying tuition? And this applies in the first category of ADMA.
The kid could participate in that school's program if it's an open enrollment school.
Well, I'm just saying, we just passed House Bill 275,
Yeah.
which allows school boards to approve tuition agreements with other public schools outside of their district. So now we've got a situation here where a student is a member of an ADMA, so they're not a member of an ADMR. They don't live in the resident. They're not a resident of the school district they're attending, but they're attending this school district. And now on a tuition basis from a sending district, and they're getting paid tuition from both the sending district and maybe from the family as well, and they're getting an additional 0.15 in adequacy funds from the state. I mean, just saying, I think this would read, this would allow that. Because it says school board approved public school. Doesn't say public school in their district. I'm just trying to tease out the corner case
Yeah.
on this. So,
Yeah.
if a student in a district is attending a public school in another district that's been approved by the district of residence school board for a tuition program, that the out of district school doesn't receive adequacy for that student. They receive tuition from so the ADMR school receives an adequacy payment,
Yeah.
but not the ADMA school, not the school where the student's
Right,
attending.
right.
This would seem to make the school that the student's attending receive.
Why would they request this additional 0.15 when they're already getting the tuition, which is the adequacy money from the resident district paying for by
I don't
way
know.
of tuition?
I don't know.
I don't think they would.
Well,
I
I
don't
think
think they should be
I think
on.
they'd get it anyway because they don't have to request adequacy. Adequacy is
They get it anyway.
is compelled by the state. Yeah, the payments are compelled by the state.
Yeah. I can't,
I don't know.
I think that's a really outside type thing. I don't think that, personally, why would that receiving district be even looking for that when they're getting the compensated for the kid being in that class?
They'd get it anyway. It would just arrive as part of the adequacy payment. I'm not saying it's big dollars, but I guess I'm sort of lost in the purpose of.
The receiving school is going to get ADMA funding based upon those kids, or they're going to get ADMR. We changed that, didn't we?
Mr. Chairman,
Mm-hmm.
according to 193:1-C, this only would apply to non-public, public chartered schools or home educated pupils, not those necessarily public students tuition to another school district.
Okay.
Is that the site on 506, page 506?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, does anybody have a problem with it saying grades 1 through 12? I do. I don't know how it'd be fine. Yes.
I spoke with my local superintendent and she came to that same conclusion and we were discussing making it maybe grades 7 to 12. Because those would be classes, assuming middle school was seventh grade and up, 7th and 8th.
Yeah.
But she had the same problem with
You're going the old junior
trying,
high school.
well, she had the same problem with trying to define classes in the lower grades.
Well, I agree with you then, Katie. I agree. It should be either 6 through 12 or 7 through 12.
Well, I go back though, that Caitlin mentioned that, go back to the point that Lynn made earlier, that there was a national definition for courses. And that I think went beyond just the categorical science, et cetera. And what they may be talking about here is that if in fact in a 5th grade class, for example, they're going to have a computer keyboarding program or something, that a child could come in for that program. Or even a language arts program, or a foreign language program if they have. I think that what she was trying to say here, that there was in fact a way you can define the general education categories, even at the the K-6 or the, at least 1-6 area. I'm not trying to defend it. I think that was the point she was trying to make, though. That you can, in fact, in elementary, do some segmentation around categories, and it's not just all general education stuff. Am I,
Is or facility that you use to
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Can you see the next page, Dave?
When, Representative Milo, when you mentioned the computer, I mean, we're talking fifth grade now.
It's in-
I mean, I taught the computer class in fifth grade where I could have homeschoolers who would come in, at the time, so I think
We're in,
it could be that low, fifth grade.
So,
And can I
so,
ask one question? So where
No,
does this
508.
originate? Does this originate from this DOE, this language?
we're unsure.
No one knows? Okay, Thank you.
But Muriel, using that as an example, and based upon your experience in schools, was fifth grade the threshold for starting keyboarding, et cetera?
yes.
And there was no other,
They might have had a, 10 minutes in class, but the class that was called computer literacy started in fifth grade,
so
not
there,
before that.
so there was no program, for example, in Logo where the kids were learning to do some minor programming, et cetera.
Well, there might have been apps that the kids were able to get on, but it wasn't a class. You know what I mean? They
Okay.
could have during flex time or whatever, done something like that. But in terms of an actual course,
And that's pretty standard.
it was, I think that's pretty, I think fifth grade,
It was, but a lot of people are assuming kids are coming knowing how to do that stuff now.
Yeah.
You know, they probably have kids in the second grade that know more about computers than I do.
that's true. But it might be not what we want them to know.
Well, that's true too. That's-
I think this was the fifth grade was, I mean, it was a course. It wasn't just keyboarding. It was, using Office, using Adobe Suite, using all these different programs to produce, not to play.
Did you have some homeschool students come into your?
Yes,
Okay. So that would qualify then under this.
yeah.
so, Rick?
Yeah.
Another technical question on this. So at the top of 19838 on page 753, it says in this subdivision, and then it starts out all the definitions. Is the subdivision 38 or is the subdivision 198?
I think the smaller of the two.
So if you follow 19838 to its conclusion, everything else looks like it's been taken out of it. 19838 is just definition.
It's really been, the historical notes,
Yeah.
it's just been wiped out.
I didn't look at that.
So it's always good to have the book.
Another plug for the book.
Another plug for the book.
So 19838 at the page of top of page or
753.
753
And then you turn the page.
is definitions. 19838, and it starts out in this subdivision. So these definitions only apply to this subdivision, whatever subdivision means. And then you flip over, and 19838 pretty much ends on the bottom of 753, and then it has notes of what's been hacked out of it over the decades. And then it starts in on 19839. And I think 19840 would probably benefit from many of these definitions. Like English language learner.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, from my experience as an elementary school principal for years and years and years, and in different states, I saw if you were talking about a course like reading language arts, sometimes that can extend beyond in the social studies, where you're doing a thematic reading book, maybe that in conjunction with what you're studying. You know, it's in the social studies side, but it's also written and in the reading level of those that you're trying to teach. And comprehension skills, detail skills are all taught. So the classes are not like they are approved courses in the high school where they're approved. Those 43 courses are approved for graduation credit. In the middle school, you can take one of those courses if it's offered in advanced, you could take Algebra 1 down there, and your board recognizes that as an approved course. But there's other courses which are done in the junior high school where students move. They move to different teachers, they move to, and that's pretty common and pretty typical. Is it that common for an elementary kid to move from their third grade class to somewhere else other than for art or music or PE? They get it all. That's why an elementary teacher is credentialed as a K6, K8 elementary teacher. They can teach it all. In the high school, and we hope it's in the middle school too, and we had those issues oftentimes before where a middle school teacher wasn't getting credit for teaching the same course as the kid in the teacher in the high school, because they were just doing it different, but teaching exactly the same course. They didn't get reimbursement for that. So, but dropping this down in the elementary school, I think we're opening it up to a disaster of interpretation, of abuse. I really, I could tolerate what Katie mentioned by talking to her boss or who's her superintendent. I know who the boss is. You're the boss, but where you're specifically taking that course in science. You've rotated to that class. You're taking the science course. That's easily identified. The school should get a 0.15 for that because the kid's coming in taking, and the school's getting nothing. I concur, but I have a hard time swallowing down to the grade school. I really do. I think we're opening up Pandora's box to where's the start and stop? Is it going to be all day long? Is that the one course? What are you going to do in kindergarten when the primary thing, everything I learned in kindergarten is what I need for life? And here you have the kindergarten teaching social skills in every class. And where's math start and stop? When you're counting blocks and playing?
So you're suggesting that a school might only get credited for 0.15, even though they're instructing a kid in a full-time basis? Possible.
If it possibly could happen.
At an elementary.
That could be a course. That could be, that's why we have definition, everything is, what does it say? In a course, program, or grade. We define course and program differently than we do grade. We have grade there simply because we got the grade schools. And though that is the curriculum. Ask me if I concur or not concur. It's up to the structure and organization of that school to figure out what's best to convey the curriculum and the instruction. It's easy in the high school. We were able to do that. I can remember the School Boards Association testifying on behalf of that, saying this is easy to identify and it should occur. We had a discussion in the middle schools at that time because we didn't have it really clearly defined, but I think you can at the middle school, whether it's grades 7 and 8, the junior high school, or 6, 7, and 8. But remember, middle schools also go down to grade 4. Glenn, you look like you're back to testify again.
If I'm correct, and I think you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, that it currently is 9 to 12 in statute. So if you want to amend this to, begin at grade 6 or whatever, and bypass the difficulties with the class structure at the elementary school level, I think that would still be a step forward for many.
What about the co-curricular stuff? I take the word co-curricular out of that because they, go ahead, Rick.
When we started homeschooling, it was up to the school district whether to allow homeschoolers to be on their teams or not. And it's not an academic program. I think I agree with you. I don't think the co-curricular.
Those rules are, you're right, and that's set up by NHIAA. They require you got to be in attendance the day prior to being in that sport. If you were missing that day, you're not going to play in that game. And we've had state championships won and lost that way. I think that the issue of sports is, I think, taken care of through that organization. And we do have kids coming in also and that are homeschooled, that are welcome to play in the middle school or the grade school activities. They're welcome, and they are too. But I don't know why co-curricular is in this.
Well, but co-curricular can be more than just athletics. I mean, it could be the chess club.
Mm-hmm.
It could be
Theater?
Theater, band, maybe.
Yeah.
Math.
Yeah, math counts.
But is the school, would the school be getting credit, 0.15 credit for the co-curricular?
No,
activity?
if you look at the co-curricular stuff, that's not part of adequacy. That's extra. That's why they call it extracurricular.
You've been saying that for some time.
And some school districts charge a fee for the student to participate in the extracurricular program. They boil it down from maybe $80 to high school down to $25, $20. They turn that around, and that's where they get their stipend money for the instructor or the coach. Coach's money is not inadequacy. The PE teacher's money is inadequacy. So are we going to reimburse them the 0.15, which is coming out of that adequacy area? Now we're going to have that funding extracurricular activities. I think we've got to be careful.
If the coaches' salaries are the same that when I coached, you get pennies on the hour. So
That's why
the
they charge
big-
fee, so you
The
get
big
some.
thing is the fields, the facility, which would be, I don't know how the facility would fit into it, but the use of the facility, the equipment, and the uniforms, that's basically the biggest cost, I think, for co-curriculars,
And
extracurriculars.
that's where you have to have a genius as a principal figuring out how to raise
How to
this
do
money.
that, right.
And a coach and the athletic director. That's their bailiwick. And that's why you see kids wearing old uniforms sometimes, because they're not at that price yet.
And that's why there's soda machines in the back hall.
That's why on my soda machine in my elementary school, which was about 500 kids, I took annually from that machine $18,000.
Oh, it's big money.
It's huge money. And then if you're in Texas, and if you have a contract with Pepsi, you better not have any Coca-Cola in that school.
That's right. Nothing good.
The teachers have been canned for that.
We tried to get it
No
out
pun
of the school.
intended, but, so what we're really talking about here then, the problems we've got with this is the elementary program, the co-curricular. So if we were to amend this to, you mentioned 6th grade to 12th for curricular programs, would that then solve the kind of conversation we've been having? So I'm just trying to reach.
You're
some
moving
conclusion.
towards that goal.
I'm trying to just reach some
Yeah.
kind of conclusion here. Okay,
Linda,
Thank you. Okay.
yeah, Kate.
If we're looking at line 3 on House Bill 625, and then compare that to the students who are eligible to have access from section 193:1C, which is referenced here, we could eliminate access to curricular and co-curricular, we could just say eligible to have access to public school programs per RSA 193:1-C. Then we wouldn't start getting into the weeds over what's co-curricular, because it's already defined in 193:1-C. It's part of the definition. The local school board shall adopt a policy regulating participation in curricular courses and co-curricular programs. So we don't have to redefine it necessarily. We can just reference the other RSA. Makes it simpler, I think.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know where this came from. We don't know where it came from. But do we have a specific problem? Like can someone give an example of a school or give an example of why it should be changed?
Yeah.
Did Glenn say that this was filed on behalf of a constituent?
The department had people contact, so I think that he's filed on behalf of the hearing from the department that that was a concern, but
What's the problem? Yeah.
And middle school isn't as delineated as high school is. I mean, you may be able to kind of wheedle out that they have a math class with a math teacher, but they set up in pods, at least over where we are, you know, the groups and they may have math integrated with something else. I mean, middle school is kind of all set up to be innovative and interconnected, rather than high school where you take a chemistry class and a physics class and, math class. So I think middle school is not as delineated and as easy.
it would be if we're talking the old junior high school.
The old junior high school.
But I tend to agree on that, but I think you could, it'd be worth investigating it if it's not 6 through 12, 7 through 12. We have a lot of K-6s buildings too, which are still, and they're all working together, all those grades. Perhaps what we ought to do is try to find out a little bit more where this came from, why it was put forth. We had this discussion once before when it came to the middle school. And we looked at language which identified the 43 courses that we required high school. Those courses have to be approved by the school board. The courses in the middle school do not. So you can teach any which way you want. Most of them get in some form of block scheduling. So, Muriel.
Well, unless if it's in middle school and they're getting high school credit for it. Right.
That was the other issue that I brought up
Okay, because
earlier.
we have that. We
Yeah.
have eighth graders taking the high school course, and it's got to be the same as the high school course.
Yeah.
They can't do whatever they
And
want.
I think that's only fair that if they're teaching a course as the high school teacher would teach it, they have equal credentials and all that, and it's approved by that board for graduation, there should be a reimbursement of a 0.15 for that course. It's a good point.
So Rick,
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to get some clarification on what the problem, what precipitated this bill to come in. I think I would also like to get some clarification on what it means at the top of
What chapter you in?
19838. Page
198.3.
753, what it means when it says in this subdivision, all these definitions, whether that stays with 38 or whether that continues throughout all of 198. And I'm also interested in the distinction in both sections of this, why the public school is is referred to as a school board approved public school. Why is it a school board approved public school as opposed to a public school? What's that trying to accomplish?
Let me look back here. 94.
Because that's not the district of residence. And 193:1C, I think, talks about the district of residence.
Yeah. I'd have to look through this thing a little bit more. I think we need a little more work on this before we can do anything. I think we got some marching orders here, what to do with it. So we'll contact DOE, try to get some more information regarding this in 19838. I saw somewhere in here where the course has to be approved by the local school board to be one of those 43 courses. I think that's in rule as well. But so let's not take any action at all. And I didn't plan to take any action on anything here today. Is there anything else we need to do on this right here? I think we need a little bit more work and more information from DOE.
Yes,
Okay, good. Okay, what's the next one we ought to take up?
637. Similar issues.
637?
Yes.
Okay,
Again, this was a DOE request, I guess.
I also have a amendment that Representative Hobson.
Would you say 637?
637. Yeah, there is an amendment to this too.
yeah, it's Amendment 143. H. Pardon me? Yeah, there was.
143.
I've got two of them right here. I can give one away if somebody needs it. Make my binder less full. Yep.
I think we're gonna need the same
Yeah,
clarification.
it's the same thing.
Yeah,
It's exactly the same
Yeah, it's the same.
clarification. I'm reading it the same way, basically.
yeah, I would think if we get Caitlin here or whomever, they can answer the questions regarding both of these. Because I've got the same question here, how do you determine the elementary curriculum? How do you define a course?
And then see, this is applicable only originally to the home educated student.
Yep.
And I think it's got to be applicable only to that student.
Yeah.
Not to an EFA student. So this one right here, this amendment would be easy for me to change, just, scratch a whole lot of stuff out of there and make it, approved public, not in the amendment. You look at B there, it still has who is enrolled in a school board approved public high school academic course. In a school board approved It could be a high school course that leads to graduation or something like that, a high school approved course in grades 8 or 7 through 12. So then you're taking that approved course that's board approved for graduation. You may be taking it early in the middle school, but you can get reimbursed for that program if it's taught in grade 7 or 8. Anybody on there need the amendment?
You have the amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got it here.
You got it, then I got it too. So you could say something like this: for the purpose of calculating ADMA, each pupil who is home educated in compliance with that RSA and who is enrolled in a school board approved public high school academic course shall count as an additional 0.15. You can take that high school course in the middle school maybe. An approved high school course leading to graduation or something such as that. That's the early algebra 1 you would get credit for. In other words, we're only opening it up still to courses that are approved at the high school level, but maybe are taught in 8th grade. That goes along with competency education. A person's ready for that should be doing that. Not
Well,
just
what
sitting
does
there
the-
until they get to high school.
How does the current law prohibit that from happening?
Well, because this says I don't think it does prohibit. Unless the definition of high school specifically says 9 through 12 somewhere. I haven't looked up that definition. There.
Right, but it's, I sort of reassessed how I was reading, school board approved high school course. It's a school board approved course. And it can be a high school course. And it doesn't mean that the student has to be on grade level.
That's right.
I mean, it's just the student is taking a school board approved high school course.
See, they have under 193E3-F, approval of courses and programs. And it says the principal or other administrator of a high school shall grant credit toward high school graduation for similar courses or programs that have been satisfactorily completed at other public school approved schools, or shall provide reasonable justification for denial. So, and it goes on and talks about Vermont and Maine and all this other being in a tuition school. But if they're going to get credit for graduation, I would think that the high school principal would have to approve that course that's being taught in the 8th grade, or at least the school board would have to. Somebody would have to.
That the school board approves it as part of the program of studies for the high school.
Yeah.
Right?
And we have kids that can graduate from high school in 3 years' time. If they're got it all done, they're ready to go to college.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody probably has some
We have some
middle
folks everywhere.
schoolers that are taking
Yeah.
high school courses, yeah.
Well, the two bills are the same.
They really are. I think it goes down to what are we trying to fix here? Yeah.
Would it be worth contacting the School Administrators Association and finding out how this would be perceived by high school principals?
I think it's worth, I mean, did this,
This came out of the department.
did this bubble up through the department to Glenn and then
One of them
to?
did. I can't remember which one.
They're both almost the same language,
This,
so,
Representative Hudson said this was from the department.
Yeah.
so we should find out what the complaint was from the department. I mean, we don't need names, but what caused
What the
it?
issues?
Yeah, yeah, let's do that.
It goes on in that thing I just read. It says, for purposes of this section, approved schools include all New Hampshire public schools. This is 193 E:3 -F. It's underneath adequate education. Yep. There's only one thing in that whole thing, that's just approval of courses. Yeah, we need to get some history on this,
Yeah.
and more from the department. We've never asked the department what would happen if you have an eighth grader that's taking an approved course in the eighth grade towards graduation. Could they get reimbursed for this, the 0.15? And the district would get the money, not the school. That would go to the district.
Mhm.
Anybody got anything else for this? They're very similar.
The same thing.
That's why we have them under the same committee, yeah.
Okay, what else do we have to do?
Okay, I'm not,
What else do we have to do?
that's it
That's it?
for today.
Mm. Good, it cleared up outside too,
Yeah, look at that, yeah.
just in time.
You can go walking tonight. Anything else? Okay, let's close it down. What we'll do is we'll come back after we get some of this information.
Good.
I'm gonna call Caitlin right now and ask her that question about taking a high school course in the eighth grade.
I don't know. Are they still in public comments? Yeah, you got clubs in the back. You're gonna head over. You gotta head over to.
Do you go around in a cart or carry them or drag them? You pull them.
Go far.
But you've got the three-wheel.
They'll come a day. Not quite this.
That's good, you're walking.
Okay.
Yeah,